Welcome to the Relationships Inside Out podcast with Doctors Gregory Siebert and Kimberly Murray, licensed marriage and family therapists. Join them on this journey as they explore the ins and outs of relationships. Welcome to Relationships Inside Out. Today we have our first guest, Julianne Curtis. She is a doula local to Northern Colorado, and we're going to be talking about support during birth, pregnancy, postpartum, and then all things doula.
Perfect.
Julianne, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Julianne. I have been a doula in Northern Colorado for about 7 years, just under 7 years. My specialty happens to be supporting families who have experienced pregnancy loss or having their rainbow baby. So I am really honored to work in that space. I'm also a certified lactation counselor and a childbirth and new parent educator. So I'm looking forward to talking to you guys today. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you again for being here. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you even got into that field. Like what'd you do before, what influenced?
Man, how much time do we have? It's interesting because it took me a long time to realize that I was supposed to be a doula. I had my daughter when I was in high school, and after her birth, I was like, wow, birth is kind of hard. And I didn't expect that. And I started going to some births with my friends just to hold their hand as a support person at that time. That was almost 27 years ago. I didn't really know what a doula was. So I was just a friend in that area. And then I went about my way in IT, actually. I worked for big tech companies, two big tech companies for about 15 years. And even there, I had friends that asked me to come to their birth. And I was like, sure, I'd love that. But about 13 years ago, my sister was having a baby. And unfortunately, her baby died at 19 weeks. And I was there with her. And after that experience, I was like, I don't want to go to births anymore. This was hard. I watched, lots of trauma come from that, trauma for me too. But then just about 7 years ago, she was having her rainbow baby, and that's a healthy baby after loss. And she asked me to be there, and I said, of course. And so when I was there at my nephew's birth, I was like, man, I know what a doula is. I knew what a doula was at that point. I was like, this is a really cool time. It was very sacred, and I felt like my weirdness fit in there. I could anticipate her needs. It was like, wow, I actually fit like this. I feel like I have a purpose in this space. And so I gave myself a year after my nephew's birth and said, I'm going to go and look into programs, get trained and certified, and become a doula. And so I was working nights at the time so I could build my website, from work. And don't tell my old employer that, but I was doing both jobs until I couldn't do them both anymore. And then I decided that, since I'd been to a loss before, I figured that if I'm going to move into this work, that I would run into that again. And so I did get a special certification in bereavement, and now that's a space that I'm really comfortable in. And I find is, there's support that's needed even on a whole nother level that I feel honored to be able to support families through now. So the rest is history. Now I reinvented myself, and I love boobs, and I love babies and mommies and parents. So that's how I got here.
That's great. One thing I think that's curious is what, I guess if you can speak to the listeners a little bit about what are some things that you do as a doula?
Yeah, it's so funny. Everybody hears that word and they automatically think a lot of different things. And one of the things that's important to know about a doula is that we don't do anything medical. I get to focus on the family's head and their heart, and then their medical providers focus on everything below that. And so it's with that, what that means when I'm focusing on their head and their heart, it means that I'm, certainly supporting them emotionally. Even prior to birth, there's a lot of pre-work that we do to prepare them, educate them on, here's what to expect, here's how to ask questions so that you can be a part of your care team and decision making. And then during labor, it's a continued emotional support, coaching. I think about if somebody was running a marathon, you have people on the sidelines, right, that are saying, go, 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 I believe in you, I know you can do this. I get to do that at births. And then that physical support piece, so helping them be comfortable, helping them to be able to relax, reminding them of tools that we've practiced. And then one other thing that sometimes doesn't get talked about, a big thing that I get to do is I get to support the partner. And
Absolutely.
I always tell my partners, I'm here to make you look good, because what I find is that a lot of partners really want to be supportive, but most of them aren't trained in birth, and so they don't always know how. And I think of that Friends episode where Chandler is giving Monica massages, and she thinks, oh, it's so nice, he wants to massage me, but that massage is awful. And so I get to help partners kind of improve their technique a little bit. And I think that creates such a more intimate experience for the family. And then I stay with them, throughout their labor, and then usually 1 or 2 hours or so after the baby's born, I can help with breastfeeding if they're planning to breastfeed, help make sure they're settled, and then tuck them into bed and be on my way. But it's pretty amazing that experience. And then after their babies are born, I get to support them as well. So I find a lot of new parents do a really good job preparing for labor, but then sometimes they forget that they're actually going to bring these babies home. It's a take-home baby. So I remain available for support after if when things come up, or help with feeding, sleep, and their relationship sometimes too.
Mm-hmm. And I can attest to this. So Julianne, in all disclosure, was my doula, an incredible resource. And that last piece you were saying of supporting the partner.
Yeah.
We don't talk about that doulas aren't just there for mama, or birthing person, but for the partner in the room. And my husband has said from the jump, we will never do a birth again without a doula, because it can make such an impact on, in our case, for him to be present, to hold my hand, to get some coaching, to get some food, to go to the bathroom, to take a breather, and not feel guilty for doing those things. Also, I don't know if you remember, Julianne, but there were points in my labor when my husband looked at Julianne and would say, like, is that normal? Is this okay? Is she okay? And being able to coach, yes, this is transition. Yes, this is normal. Especially following, we had birth trauma with our first. And so following that of, this is not that, this is a healthy moment. I cannot attest to doulas enough in the birth community. Julianne, I wondered too, if you could share a little bit about the belly binding. So I got some belly binding done afterwards by Julianne, and it helps mama's body actually recover. So do you mind sharing a bit about that?
Sure. It's another service that I provide, and belly binding is interesting because every culture, except for American culture, has some type of what's called closing of the bones, or a sealing practice after baby's born. And what happens is, after you've had a baby in your womb, your organs are all squished up, your lungs are basically in your throat, and they have to figure out where to go and get back into their normal position after your baby's born. And that is hard on your body. And also most of us have a lot of extra skin after our babies are born. And so what I do is I come over and I have some fabric. It's about 17 yards of fabric. And they're always really pretty. And I will teach a new parent to wrap themselves with the bind. And what it does is it stabilizes your core. It feels really good. It stabilizes your hips too. Also helps with lymphatic drainage. And if there's ever any ab separation, it's a nice support for putting your abs in the place they need to be so that they can grow back together. So the idea behind it is that you wrap yourself every day for 40 days. 40 days is kind of the sitting period that a lot of cultures use for recovery after postpartum. And some people will wrap themselves during the day. Some people will wrap themselves at night. You wear it for 12 hours and I just totally lost my train of thought, what I was trying to say, but you'll wear it for 40 days and then you can save it and hold on to it when your period comes back. And it just feels really good and really supportive. A lot of breastfeeding parents love it too, because it, a lot of times we're looking down or hunching over, and it helps with your posture so that you don't get that sore neck and back.
Game changer.
Everybody
check it out there.
Yeah. I have a lot of physical therapists actually that refer people to me for it, and because it doesn't put any pressure on your pelvic floor. So a lot of the Velcro binders that you can buy on the internet, they do put pressure on the pelvic floor, and which can cause things like a prolapse. And so it's just about stabilization and support. A lot of us haven't used our abs in 9 months after our babies are born, so it gives a little bit of support as you're trying to re-engage your core as well. So
I think it's extremely informative. And I love that we're having this conversation, because for me as a licensed marriage family therapist working with couples, there's just a lot of information that isn't there. A lot of people think we can do this. Then the kid comes, marital satisfaction takes a strong dip. And so I'm curious of, in that sense of information, what have you noticed has been really key for couples and families that you work with that comes up quite a bit for you?
Both probably in preparation and then afterwards, like helping field some of those questions.
Yeah. So when I work with a family, they get some prenatal education with me. And one of those is where we talk specifically about the 4th trimester. Let's have some plans here. I think that we hear a lot of scary stories about the 4th trimester that, oh my gosh, we barely survived. It's a blur. I can't remember it, or it was so hard. So with my prenatal education, we talk about, I have a recovery guide that I give all of my families, and it helps them plan who is going to help you with the baby, who is going to, how can you support your partner with their physical recovery. One of my favorite parts of it is asking, okay, who does the dishes in the house now? And one of them will tell me, and they'll say, okay, who does the cleaning? And then we go through kind of all of the roles and in the house, we talk about shared work and how we might want to reallocate that after the baby's born, because baby requires at least 40 hours a week just to feed them, but they do require care for 24 hours a day. And so helping them have some of those conversations around their plan for feeding, sleep, and the relationship can make a huge difference up front. And just being able to have those conversations. It doesn't mean too that if we make a plan, they can't modify that. But I think it really sets them up for some, supporting each other and avoiding that isolation that sometimes people feel as well. So we talk about how they're going to get fed, really just kind of avoiding those silent contracts of, assuming that you're going to be doing this, you're going to be doing that. And so knowing kind of what the roles are going to be can be really helpful.
So what I'm hearing is like a lot of logistics, setting that up. And I find myself working a lot with that, about not even necessarily content, but how do we get them to navigate those processes more effectively, right? I look at like premarital counseling. A lot of it's like, oh, you need to talk about finances. You need to talk about parenting. Well, sure, but you need to know how to talk about those things. And I think that's very much true when we're expecting or, just had a child in that context, because, and I think you brought up an important point, is we should probably expect to adapt. We can set a plan, but we also have to expect to adapt.
Yeah. And I think the one thing that parents which can count on, which is very hard for many of us who like to have control or like to have routine, is that every day with your newborn is going to be different, and you're going to have these moments of, oh, great, we got the hang of it. We got a good stretch of sleep last night, and then something changes. And so the one thing they can count on is changed. And that is really hard for a lot of us. So that's why we need that communication to be, solid. after baby's born, a lot of times I will work with a family and see them postpartum. And some of the things that we're doing is strategizing, how can we make your routine a little bit easier so that you're not both exhausted? And that happens to be one of my specialties. I was a single parent for most of my daughter's childhood. And so I got some good experience trying to master, simplifying routines and making them more doable. So
specifically to couples, and then I want to talk about families. Do you have any tips for couples of in that stage of planning to become pregnant, or once they are pregnant, really prepping their relationship so that that dip in marital satisfaction doesn't have to dip as low?
Yeah. Well, I teach Dr. Gottman, John Gottman's, I teach a class. He has a class called Bringing Baby Home, or Baby Makes Three. And it's about the changes in a relationship when you add a baby. And there's two things I love from that. One is the daily stress relieving conversation. And I encourage parents, while they're pregnant, even have 20 minutes a day, where 10 minutes for each of you, where you talk about something other than your relationship or other than the baby that's coming. That helps them to stay connected and and then they can continue that conversation after their baby's born. So they make it a priority to have those conversations with each other, because it's so easy to get all consumed in this baby, which is wonderful, but their relationship is important, and remembering what got them here and what connected them in the first place. I think the other part of that is the emotional bank account, where keeping each other, that fondness and admiration, you got to keep that going through postpartum. Tell your partner, thank you so much for getting me that water, because I was so thirsty, and it makes breastfeeding easier. Or just really being patient with each other and complimentary towards each other, because both parents have hard jobs when the baby comes along. And so I think those are two of the biggest things that I recommend. And just, being gentle with each other. It's harder to cope and harder to like your partner when you're tired, so.
And I like those tips, because it actually builds what John Gottman talks about as positive sentiment, right? That's where when we have more positive sentiment and we're able to hold our partner with some positive regard when things go south, like they will when you have a child or in the process of, it helps you give your partner benefit of the doubt, and helps kind of provide some resilience in that process.
Or if you have a negative interaction, you're more likely to recover from it, because you like your partner, or you've done that work to, to be okay, or repair, I guess, that conflict. But
the key is done the work, not wait until after it happens to get help. And that preparation, I feel, is very pivotal.
Even while we're pregnant or trying to conceive, not in the moment of stress after newborn's here, but prepping so that when we do have that additional stress, we have these tools already in our pocket and they feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Well, and think about too, so many families, it's not, for a lot of families, it's not just, we're trying for one day and we got pregnant. There's lots of things and lots of stories and roads that people and couples go through to get their take-home baby. And sometimes that baby comes home and they're like, and everything kind of falls apart, because we're finally able to say, wow, that's been a journey, or that's been a lot. And so I think it's really important too for couples to have some good support, during pregnancy, before that, hopefully, and after, because, it's a big change for everybody. And that support piece is, we're not meant to do all of this alone, and to raise babies alone. I think it's always easier on a partnership if you have some good support. Now, that may not be your family, that may be your family, depending on the family you have, but I feel like that's another big piece that a lot of American parents are missing. So,
and that team approach. Like, I have several clients that also work or have worked with Julianne, and talking to the OBs and having this kind of collaborative system can make a big difference on the marriage, on adapting to parenthood, when we've got multiple points of support and they're working as a unit, not all individually.
So I'm going to bring up a term that is said in, I think, every episode we've had, boundaries. Kim, you've talked about this previously in this context.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts around establishing boundaries with who's going to be part of that team?
Oof. Boundaries are so important here. Again, another sentence we've said. But they are deciding who gets to be in your birthing space, who gets to be there the days, weeks, months after birth, as a partnership, negotiating that, but also being open to flexibility. Maybe we thought we wanted mom in there, and then birth comes and we're like, nope, don't want mom there. Being able to count on your partner to share that boundary.
And being okay if that other family member is pushing themselves and wanting to be a part of there, wanting to shape the name of the baby. Parenting
strategies or things. I have someone in my close kinship who, when I was nursing, would come over and look down, literally down at my breast and critique my latch. And this person hasn't had a kiddo for many decades.
That wasn't me, was it?
No, you're great. But in that moment, being able to lean on my partner to set that boundary when I didn't have the energy or space to do so.
Yeah. And it speaks to this idea of unified front. That's what I think when we're prepping and learning how to navigate, learning the skills that Julianne is talking about, that's really developing a unified front to navigate this together. How can we get through this together and manage the slump in relationship satisfaction? Because the first thing that really we sacrifice is our romantic relationship when a child comes.
And the boundaries play out too. If, say, it's a hospital birth, right? Plays out in my birthing preferences, in my boundaries with medical consent, in where I want my partner to be in that birth space. Julianne, how do you see boundaries play out, and how do you help couples kind of navigate through this from pregnancy through into postpartum?
Yeah. I think one of the things I talk about with couples is, before kids, it's kind of you're each me, you each have your own identity. Certainly your relationship is important, but now when you add a baby into this, you have to kind of move from me to we and be that team approach. So especially when it comes to, families and working with trying to let the new parents enjoy their baby with the boundaries of, hey, we want some support, but we're going to tell you when that it's okay for that support, or be
what
able
it looks
to have
like.
a plan, what it looks like. I'll always tell new parents, have a code word, whether it's cacao or pineapple, have a code word that if you do have family that comes over and they're looking at your breast and critiquing your latch, say, hey, we need some pineapple. And then your partner knows to boot those people out of your house, but also having like a list of things that people can help you with. And they need to know that if they're coming over to support you postpartum, they're not necessarily coming over to hold the baby. They're coming over to clean your house or feed you. And I'll tell parents, if somebody shows up at the door empty-handed, just close the door. Just close the door. You don't have to let them in.
It's so true.
I mean, seriously, in our culture, we really need that support. And if you think about other cultures and how they, when they have babies, they are never left alone with those babies. People know what they need to do, and, it's a team. But back to the boundary piece, I will tell parents, sometimes, it's okay to hurt feelings. It's okay to say, we're going to have our birth privately, with just us. And then we will let you know when we're ready for you to come and join us, because I think it's important that, they have that time to bond with their baby and connect, especially if they're breastfeeding. If you're interrupting that with, by playing past the baby, that can make feeding more difficult. So those boundaries are really important, and I feel like they get to practice them for the first time, in their births, and then it'll grow from that when you start working on, okay, now what are we going to do for the holidays? And, how are we going to tell your mom that she's not going to ever drive with our baby, or, whatever the things are, right? I had a mother-in-law that was really struggled with boundaries, and her kids told her, please don't come over. And she did come over anyway. She rang the doorbell and kept ringing the doorbell, and they didn't answer because they knew it was her and they were sleeping, or they had been up all night. Then she went around to the backyard and tried to come in through the back and through their sliding door. And so we really had to have a talk with her about, this is not acceptable. And I think it's okay for parents to set those boundaries and say, you know, we'll have you over when the time is right, but it's not right now.
It sounds like an episode of Everybody Loves Raymond.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
And I want to encourage listening to the birthing person. Yes, both partners are, of course, important in the birth space. And when you're the person giving birth in whatever way that is, there's a lot of vulnerability of people seeing you naked, whether it's in birth or nursing. And I hear moms say, yeah, my often mother-in-law came over and I had to go hide away in a separate room with baby to nurse. And it creates this isolating feeling that really perpetuates postpartum depression and anxiety. And if we're not feeling safe to feed our baby, to take care of our physical needs, whatever it might be, that's a good cue for the other partner or both partners to really say, like, maybe company is not good right now. And so I encourage the supporting partner to really let the birthing partner lead, especially those first few weeks of what will feel safe for them and their body and what will help promote bonding with that baby.
Yeah. And I'm curious, to share, because I know with certain clients, there's a lot of insecurity around latching.
Yep.
So what kind of commentary can be provided? You don't have to share, but I just, in my mind, I'm just thinking of like this announcer at like a NASCAR race.
Well, often like we don't feel safe with any part of our breast tissue showing. And even within my own unit, when I had Harper, our oldest, I nursed openly. If you're going to look, then you've got bigger issues and I just don't care. And even nursing at places like Disney World, part of my kinship did not like that choice. They thought it was sexualizing or provocative or inappropriate. And so it's
those comments.
Yes, those kinds of comments, or your latch, or in some cultures, nursing isn't the standard or breastfeeding isn't the standard. It's, why wouldn't you just do formula? Or like I nursed my oldest until she was 2 and my current is 1.5 years and she's still nursing. You're still nursing? Wow.
Those little comments. Those little comments that can be so hurtful.
You're going to let them fall asleep at the breast. Are you really going to let them latch like that?
They're corrosive.
All the things. It's brutal.
When I work with families, I'll tell them, you can choose who your support is. And if those little comments are coming into play, that might not be the right support. That's what I call the oxytocin buzzkill. And, if people are adding stress for you, then they're probably not, or stress or hurt, they're probably not the people that should be around you as you're figuring out breastfeeding or in your birth. I think one of the things that I love so much is I get to be the mama without the drama, and that's hard for a lot of grandparents to understand sometimes when a doula is invited, but they're not. And it does really help because I don't have the emotional baggage with the birthing person that they might have with their family. So I get to go in there from a non-judgmental standpoint and support them, and sometimes our family, especially our moms, I think can be triggers too. So during your birth, being triggered or hearing your own mother say talk about her birth, can be really distracting. And then I have a lot of families too that birthing person's mom has passed away. And so, I think it's a real big honor that sometimes I get to kind of provide that motherly figure for them, during labor and after, in those postpartum times, because, we don't even, sometimes we want family and support, but we just don't have that. And I think that
I can attest to that. Yep.
Well, and Julianne, I know you tend to, when we're talking about picking our team, who's that team that's going to support us through this? You've talked about previously that you like to pick out and help the couple pick out people's strengths. Do you mind speaking to that a little bit?
Yeah, I think I want both parents who are involved to know that they're both equal parents. There doesn't need to be one who's a kind of the default parent and then one that's along for the ride. Both parents have just as many options to learn and to do everything, and sometimes, except for feeding sometimes. But I think when we're as a coupleship, when you know each other's strengths and you can, pick tasks to do that are based on those strengths. So, and I think that adds support in a way of just your coupleship. So if you know that, your strength is soothing a baby, well then you soothe the baby, or maybe even being open to learning some techniques. How are you soothing the baby? Teach me, and not a place from, oh, I don't know how to do anything with the baby, I'm not involved, but a place from, oh yeah, you've got that mastered, show me your ways, so that they can both feel like they're being successful caring for the baby. I think that
includes with other family members too, right?
Yeah, for sure. Sometimes grandparents are really good at soothing a baby, or babies have a fussier period developmentally, 2 weeks of life and 7 weeks. And so maybe those are the times you invite the grandparents over and you say, hey, soothe our baby, we're going to go take a nap. And so you can definitely utilize people's strengths. Another way that I do that is with family. I'll use my mom as an example. If I needed groceries, I would never send her to the store to get groceries for me, because she'd call me 20 times and say, they don't have this. Are you sure you want this brand? This other brand's cheaper. And it would just become really stressful. But if I said, Mom, would you make me an apple pie? I know that she would make me the very best apple pie ever. She would also enjoy doing it. And that would be a way that she feels like she's helping, and then a way for me to feel supported. So, playing on people's strengths that way can really change the support. And then if you have the people who maybe you just need their support, their best support would be to not be in your space, then you just send them far away, send them to the Costco that's, an hour away instead of the one that's close by. So.
Yeah. And I love that, because there's sometimes tension around how do we get involved? People want to help and they don't know how to help.
Including the partner, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Especially dads. We just kind of set dads up for failure in our culture. And so finding those,
I tell my husband,
beautiful.
I tell my husband all the time, it'd be so much easier if he would just be a mind reader, especially when I don't even know what I need.
Preach.
But we can set our partners up for success too by saying, hey, I need this every day to feel human. This is how you can support me. And doing that, that goes both ways, that their individual self-care is really important. And sometimes with a baby, you have to modify that a little bit, where, I use the example of a rock climber. A rock climber before a baby might go rock climbing every day, but after a baby, it may not be every day that they go, but they should still be able to have their hobbies or their things that they do for self-care, because that'll make them better parents and partners in that way. But
my wife actually found this. I think the book's titled the same thing as the cards, but the cards are called Fair Play. Have you heard of them?
No.
And it's like so many cards. I don't know how many cards there are, like 84, 64, something like that. And in there's a bunch of tasks like laundry and garbage and dishes. And you could, there's like rules in there, but I'll just give an example from my lack of knowledge, but we'll provide a link after. And you shuffle them. So like maybe this week you get laundry and I get dishes, but every couple or each partner gets 3 cards. I only remember 2 of them, self-care and unicorn time. And this is part of, don't forget about yourself in this process, but also how do we effectively navigate these tasks? Oh, you got laundry, let's reshuffle this week, or maybe the next day, like this is too much. But I love that because it provides some sense of being tangible around this process by also having these cards that say, don't forget about yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I think I could see that being really helpful with the baby, making sure that, that self-care time is, and I'm not talking about like the buzzword self-care. I'm talking about the things that they can do that re-energize them to help them to feel like they're
a shower, a walk, talking to a friend.
Yeah. Help with that burnout so we can then be a little bit more effective in our
Truth.
hopefully unified front and approach.
Even with sleep, right? Sleep is hard in the newborn stage. So how do we as a team work to accomplish sleep? I often share that Chris, I would nurse and then I'd pass babe to him and he would do diaper change if needed, swaddle, and then getting our daughter back to sleep. And it allowed him to sleep while I nursed. And then I slept while he did the other things. And that teamwork not only gave us both more sleep, but then he started to feel confident of, I can soothe this baby. I can swaddle. He is the most champion swaddler and soother of anyone I know, woman or man. Like he just, if we have friends who bring over their babies, he is the one to calm them, to soothe them. And I can't soothe at all in the way he does. And I most certainly can't swaddle like he does.
Does he want to hold me?
No, I want to be swaddled by Chris.
Oh, it's the best. They don't come apart. Whenever I swaddle, it like starts to like fall apart. No, he's a champion. Wow. He'll have to teach you one day, Greg.
Yeah.
But it allows him. Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. Why wouldn't I be surprised if I came home and that's what you two were doing? Yay. But it allows our partner to have those strengths while both of us getting that all important sleep.
Yeah. It feels good. It feels good when you can do something successful or something meaningful with your children, you know, and we certainly want to build each other up, and partners should build each other up that way. Sometimes just even backing off and letting your partner figure it out. You know, there's more than one right way to do things often. And partners sometimes will do things differently than the other partner. But that doesn't mean that it's wrong or, you know, so I think that's really empowering. Yeah.
Many ways to the same solution.
I always suggest, like, if one parent is breastfeeding, that the other parent really finds something that is just theirs with the newborn, with the baby. And maybe that is diaper changes because that's when your baby's awake and makes eye contact with you. Or maybe that's you do the bedtime routine and you start that, or bath time, or reading a story, just something that can be that other parents, because it is easy to feel like, oh gosh, my baby doesn't need me. They just want the boob, or, you know, I'm not doing enough or not helpful enough. And I think that's really hard for partners sometimes to feel like, one, that they're included or important, and two, you know, a lot of that focus gets shifted from them to the newborn. So that can be hard.
And I want to bring back something you said earlier. In those moments, even if that is your partner's thing, right? Like if I'm a nursing mom or my hubby's doing the swaddling, just because they do it on a routine doesn't mean we don't say thank you. So appreciating them for the big, the small of, wow, I'm like, thank you so much for letting me sleep, or thank you for swaddling the baby, or for letting me take a shower alone. Don't hesitate to say thank you more than you think you need to, especially when we're in crisis or tired or just kind of over it. Those thank yous can go a long, long way. So sharing gratitude.
I always joke with couples, I'm like, condition your partner. Condition them to do the things you like by validating the things that you appreciate. And we forget to do that. And a lot of times when couples come together, it tends to be problem saturated. It doesn't have to be. Validate, even in conflict, to say, I still love you. You know, we have to talk about this, and I'm frustrated with this.
Yeah, I just had that conversation. My husband, he's amazing. He does all of our laundry, and he folds my shirts inside out. So when I look at a shirt, I can't tell what's on the shirt. And so I had to do the love sandwich thing. I had to say, you know, I love so much that you do the laundry. I don't want to discourage you from that, but would you fold my damn shirts the right way? No, I didn't say that, but
shirt sandwich.
You said it just like that, didn't you?
Just like that. And then I followed up with, I love you, you know. But I think that is important, you know, to work together and not crush your partner when they are trying to, you know, and when they are doing things for you. But it's tricky when you have a baby too and you're tired, because sometimes your ability to get your words out nicely can be hard. But trading off being tired, I always say that for parents, you know, take turns. One of you take the baby and let the other one get a stretch of sleep, and then switch off. that can be really helpful, because I think with sleep, when we have babies are made, you know, they're meant to wake up frequently and often even during the night. So parents have this new night job on top of, you know, their day job. If they're taking turns with the sleep deprivation, that can be helpful. And also looking at their sleep in a way that is where we're still going to get 8 hours of sleep. It just won't be consecutive. It'll be 8 hours broken up in a 24-hour period. That's sometimes how they can manage that a little bit better.
And I like how you normalize that, like they're meant to wake up a lot. So those parents out there, oh, my baby sleeps for 7 hours. Oh, it's amazing. I don't know what you're doing wrong. Not helpful.
Yeah, no.
And as newborns, they even tell you to wake them
people,
up until they're at steady weight gain.
Yeah, and people make those little comments like, oh, is your baby sleeping? And then it, you know, makes parents feel like, oh, there's something wrong because my baby's waking up 2 times a night. Or we've got to do better as a culture about the things we say to new parents.
Absolutely.
Telling our scary stories, and just, you know, instead offering support would be so much better.
And this is where your role is so vital. And going back to what Kim mentioned in the beginning, is you're normalizing this process. You're giving them comfort in these things that they might not know about, maybe heard another narrative that's not necessarily accurate, and it makes them question their ability to be a parent.
And that all these choices, so long as they're made in safety and health, are good choices, whether it is formula or breast milk, or again, done in safety, but bed sharing versus sleeping on your chest versus sleeping in a bassinet versus when do we transition baby from our bedroom? 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. All of these are decisions that are continuously criticized. You will not please the masses with any. So having that support.
I hope that you're empowered as parents to make decisions that are best for your family. You don't have to do what your parents did. You don't have to do what your neighbors are doing or what the moms group is telling you to do on, you know, the Facebook group. Yeah, I know. It's a hard one.
The worst. Mom shame is the worst.
I know. I don't like that. It's a hard thing, but I think we can all do better. And we learn, you know, when we have our babies that, wow, we have to be really careful what we say to other parents, and, you know, given that encouragement. When you see a mom or a dad or a parent in the grocery store struggling with their toddler, tell them it's okay. You get it. Tell them that they're going to be okay too. Instead of giving those judgmental looks, you know, show them that solidarity, you get it.
I don't know about you, Julianne, but as you said, judgmental looks, as a parent, I just had like a flash of 50 different people staring at me in a certain way. Once you feel it, whew. Any other tips, Julianne, that you would give to birthing persons and their partners or their families to really support them through this transition, or to support them in their relationships?
Oh man, there's so many. I think, you know, when it comes to birth and the birth process, I would say just don't hesitate to go slow. Don't hesitate to ask questions of your providers. I feel like we're so lucky in Northern Colorado. We do have amazing providers. They all have different personalities, and, you know, we all have personalities that we like. So find a provider that makes you feel good about yourself, that doesn't make you, you know, that you don't leave an appointment being freaked out or afraid, you know, somebody that listens and validates. I think that's so huge. You know, you can start out with a birth team that is extremely supportive. And when you have that birth team that's supportive, it kind of builds your foundation for becoming a parent. So don't settle and ask for things to be slowed down sometimes. You know, this is your birth, and we want to honor that. So sometimes it's, you know, we just kind of get into the robotic or mechanical motions of it, but don't hesitate to just kind of slow down and let your head and your heart catch up to what's happening. And, you know, and I guess the last thing I would say is that, you know, it's okay if you don't like the newborn stage. You know, it's okay if you have some fears, because we all do, and you just need to say them out loud. And, you know, and I hope that you're in a space when you're birthing that you can feel safe to say that, because trying to run from our fears doesn't really make them go away, but saying them out loud and, can let them float on by a little bit easier. So
getting that support, postpartum depression, anxiety, even psychosis are probably far more common than we know. And it doesn't just exist in the birthing person, it exists in their partners. With my first, it was me. With our second, definitely my husband. Men are not exempt from this. So getting that support. If you're feeling low, feeling unsupported, feeling confused, get support.
And I think being okay if the process is not perfect.
Yeah.
And that's why I love you're talking about slowing down, Julianne, is because, let it catch up, sink in, be present. It's not going to be perfect, and really just enjoy that process.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not always saying you have to look at the bright side. When you're going through the hard things, it's not always appropriate to find the positive, but definitely just, honoring kind of your baby's story of their birth. And, even if it's not what you pictured, I think no matter how prepared you are, it's going to be different than what you're envisioning. But different doesn't have to be bad. It can just be different. So.
And then Julianne, do you want to share your contact information in case anyone has any questions? We'll also link it in the description too.
Yeah, for sure. My website is juliannecurtis.com, and that's Julianne, Curtis with a C. And you can find me on Instagram and Facebook. Instagram is Julianne Curtis Doula. And feel free to reach out with any questions, or can I plug my movie, my short film, Kim?
Yes.
I do. So bereavement, like I mentioned, was my specialty. And I, this last year, produced a short film about pregnancy loss. And we have our premiere coming up at March 19th and at the Lyric in Fort Collins. So I'm excited for that, and excited to use this short film as an educational tool for supporting families who are going through hard things. So you can find information about that at bestillshortfilm.com.
So
Incredible.
exciting.
And we'll share that as well.
Okay.
And link below for those listening.
Thank you so much, Julianne. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
We are going to have, I'm sure, follow-up conversations about this, because birth, family transition, having a baby, these shifts are so complex and really do impact all of our relationships, not just romantic, but our relationships with ourselves, with our families, if we have other children, with them. So thank you all for listening. Again, this is Relationships Inside Out, where we break down relationships and what can help make them healthy. If anyone has any questions, comments, topic ideas, please email us at relationshipsinsideout@gmail.com. Thank you all.
Thank you.